Welcome, Vintage Hollywood Archive. What is it like to have a husband in the film industry? Unsatisfied at home, many girls have pondered. John Payne's frank and open opinion about this would astonish many. Without the aid of camera angles, he was a virile, life-loving man who didn't hold back on describing everything. John Payne tells how to marry a Hollywood star. We will find that out in this video, so be sure to watch the video all the way through and share your thoughts in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to become a part of our fantastic community. John Payne, the husband. John Payne was as tall, dark, and gorgeous as any guy who had ever graced the silver screen. Why don't you just say it as it is? Why not expose the flaws and shortcomings of such a husband? You want to know if, beyond the bluster, he'll be a disappointment. Conceived, fickle, and more difficult to manage? No one is more qualified than John to expose the quirks of a typical actor husband. He was only 29 years old, but he already had an enviable starring deal with Daryl Zanuck, making him Tyrone Power's main competition on the 20th Century Fox lot. He married Anne Shirley, a film star in her own right, at 25, and despite all the Hollywood pitfalls, they built a successful marriage. They never discussed their marriage because they believed it was a personal affair between them, which we believe they did well. So, John's straightforwardness wasn't a violation of his and Anne's hard resolve to keep their affection and their year-old kid to themselves. He told reporters time and time again that he'd rather have no exposure than exploit an intimate connection. He was a staunch realist who never played games with others, and also neither himself nor Anne. Those who are curious about a movie star's husband from afar can get his thoughts on the species for what they're worth. You may simply compare our qualities against our negatives because we modern performers become a special kind of husband, John stated quietly. I believe we have distinguishing and distinctive assets. We also have no qualms about being blandly devoid of those characteristics that have been touted as foundation stones for a long time. I don't want to make a production out of this. To be specific and get right to the point, when a girl falls in love with an actor, she will receive a proposal quickly. She won't have to wait for him to realize she's planning a wedding. Actors aren't a backward brand. They make a living by expressing their emotions. Therefore, when a girl proves interesting, fine, and nice enough to pique their interest, they are not the scared lamb. They don't marry for the sole purpose of gaining a permanent servant. They have much too much imagination and adventure for that. But when they finally gaze into someone's eyes and feel that irrefutable mutual click, they trust their instincts. Why? Anne and I had only been acquainted for a week when it was plain she was for me, and so I proposed right then, John said. With a few splashy expectations, he thinks that being engaged to a movie actor is likely to be quieter than a similar step in the everyday circle. To begin with, the formality of a party where the fiancé hastily breaks the news to her agog girlfriends is rarely present. The actor is emphatically an item when he swears off other women. Therefore, the news of his engagement must be handled delicately. I didn't want a blast, John said. So I snuck out of our plan to marry, letting it ooze into the columns. No, I didn't give Anne a convertible or a smidgen of mink as a present. My lone peculiarity stemmed from the requirement of wearing 2 engagement rings. I gave her a large amethyst that I wore as a stand-in until I could retrieve a diamond from a vault in Virginia that had belonged to my grandpa. Then, assuming there are no divorces pending and none to complicate matters here, an engagement to an actress is rarely a drawn-out affair. When we fall, we bet on our ability to care for a woman. His wedding served as a good example of what to expect. It was a quiet wedding on a lovely patio overlooking the coast in Santa Barbara, about 100 miles north of Hollywood. For the honeymoon, John hired an English house at the prestigious Biltmore Hotel. He planned on having 4 days off, but was instead summoned to the studio the next morning. Now, as for the controversial subject of whether the couple was conceited, John believed that the bulk of actors is less conceited but more egotistical than the man who isn't an actor. They can't be unduly pompous since actors are painfully aware of themselves. Their every move is continually scrutinized, and they are chastised whenever someone objects. You can count on them to be aware of our mistakes. However, there's no denying that they are also self-centered. they must be because they sell individuality. We value anything that has to do with appearance and potential charm. John was so perceptive about why people behave the way they do that he could have been a practicing psychologist. It's a light feeling. You wouldn't be able to stay stable out here if you're prone to flitting from person to person. Likewise, the polar opposite. In that regard, Hollywood does not transform a man from who he was. However, an actor's husband is unquestionably more of a bother. There's always the added factor of his celebrity, which is always with his wife as the price she has to pay for selecting him. The normal lady decides to readjust her relationship with her husband. However, no matter how much she adjusts, an actor's wife can never assume she has everything under control. For his never-to-be-forgotten public, his paying patrons, she had to have a rubber stamp face with a smile on it. John frankly admits that the introverted, unsocial, and flustered girl would never fit in. With his fellow shoppers in store, an actor's wife can never be herself. She has to expect to be seen, for her everyday action to be scrutinized and exaggerated. This is inconvenient and requires additional energy. As a safety valve, she must have an active sense of humor about Hollywood, herself, and her husband. Many ladies would be too childishly romantic to be spouses here in Hollywood. An actor's wife should be able to recognize all types of individuals and keep in mind that her spouse is first and foremost a human being. He could be perplexed or tempted. This wifely tolerance, which is an absolute must, can only be acquired by extensive interaction with realities. Countless spouses can be blissfully unaware of their husband's professional woes, but not if he's filmed. When a girl begins dating an actor, one of the first shocks she receives is finding out that he must bring his business with him. He's not finished when he leaves the studio, and he goes there and returns at all hours of the day and night, much like a doctor. The wife of Hollywood actor is severely limited in her entertainment options. She can't schedule or accept dates based on the premise that he'll be available, because he'll never know in advance, and will have to double-check at the last minute. John claimed that diplomacy must come naturally to a wife in that world. Everything people do socially has the potential to help or destroy their business. As great as his ability, it is his contacts that propel him forward. She won't be able to sit back and relax once he starts climbing, but she'll never be bored. When a man gets cast, he is merely between situations. Don't go on that first date if you can't stick to the diet. Outsiders don't seem to notice the nerve-wracking component of Hollywood. They're more concerned with the byproducts and avoid the complexities that we can't avoid in reality. Studios are factories that deal with and manufacture human emotions. Producers deal with a lot of emotional lumber, and you can bet actors have to be on their toes to make sure they don't get emotionally caught up in their private lives. Because there's so much risk, every Hollywood's husband's problems were bigger and more splattery. An actor can't make too many mistakes, or he'll be fired. He has to score while he can, since he may never get another chance. This brings us to the insecurity that comes with having a Hollywood hubby. Don't marry an actor for his money. Don't even assume that he'll keep you safe. Ignore his large wages. He may be intelligent enough to handle the intricacies of his business transactions. I am. But he'll never be very wise or prudent with his money. It'll always be a life of financial ups and downs for him. There isn't nearly as much money as most ladies think. It comes in on a sporadic basis, and there's an unbeatable professional overhead that's discouraging. John stated that no actor is ever set for life. It's not that type of a ladder. A girl can enjoy his rash indulgences, but she'll have to balance them with wrangling, and it's pointless to try to win him over. He might even suggest that the ordinary great yearning for security is a bad thing for an actor to clinch his secondary interest in money. The most intriguing actors have been erratic and unpredictable. Actors who get too wealthy become boring. Riches suffocate and formalize them. Actors want to stay young, thus they should be unpredictable. Personally, John did not want a certain established way of life because of a well-defined routine approach to life would result in a stagnant personality. He never worries for a reason. Looking back seems counterproductive, pointless, and mental stress. He believed that dreaming too much was also dangerous. When you obtain something that you think would make you happy, you're afraid of losing it. You transform into a stoic old man. It's exhilarating to live life on the spur of the moment, savoring every moment. It is very unsettling for some ladies. The inevitable decline of a movie star, when he or she will have to change careers, looms ever so little on the horizon. A wife in this situation must be willing to communicate that difficulty with him. "I'm studying directing every chance I get, and I've got that lethal era as an ace up my sleeve," said John. Despite the romantic rules promulgated by Hollywood, a movie star does not want his wife to work at marriage. "I don't work at love. Anne and I don't have any particular beliefs that we adhere to religiously. If you visualize a little gray house together at 70, that Molly and me stuff when you marry, you're straining to be emotionally set. Of course, we help one another daily, but what matters to me is what is going on right now. To make her marriage last, a Hollywood wife must rely on herself rather than on conventional pressure and promises. That is a difficult task. You can't make an actor explain himself or boss him around. That's a lousy theory in any situation. No one likes or enjoys having to explain something. If he won't admit it, forget about it. It's a difficult attribute to master, but it's a desired one. Instead of shouting him out, a wife can get around an actor by joking with him. As gloomy as most of the men in this game are, they respond quite well to jollying. An actor will not make a big deal out of trivial issues. John may be uncommon in this regard. He will go to any length to maintain harmony. He believes, however, that it is a general, albeit unforeseen trait. A cinematic male will not be a constant Romeo. When a man has been sad for his director all day, he can't be sadder to please his wife. He'll probably have to smile all day, and if he's bothered late at night, his lips may form a small snarl. He can't be amorous if he's fatigued from exhausting sequences. Perhaps, John chuckled, he'll forget to stop dramatizing himself since he hasn't heard anyone yell, "Cut!" I remember working on a massive dining room set for an entire day. I was up to my ears in counterfeit caviar and champagne after ordering butlers after butlers that evening. With our houseboy and maid, I found myself outperforming my previous day. What a tumultuous hangover! Anne sat quietly and calmly as I continued. "You were cute, honey," she grinned as I ran down the stairs. "It's adorable, my eye." Actor husbands are often late, but you'd rarely meet a woman in Hollywood who is on time. Actors don't pay attention to the small things. They react and forget about them, which can be perplexing to a dutiful wife. John said that he does not hesitate to get up and pull Anne away with the bare minimum of alibi from any gathering they don't enjoy. It isn't courteous, but it alleviates some unnecessary suffering. We don't have anything to be afraid of when it comes to our main females. Not at all. We may be cast beside a blonde with inch-long veiled lashes, but she's usually focused on getting her face and our backs to the camera. Because he is male and the studio's needs come first, a celebrity husband is the family's boss. He is, nevertheless, an avenue for a wife's emotional outbursts. He enjoys being caressed and groomed like a puppy. She can guide, if not blueprint, him because he's usually the bewildered one of the two. He's not going to be held captive by sex alone. Out here, a clever woman knows that having the most fun will get her the most places. He'll want her to appeal glamorous to keep his reputation, so she'll never complain about not having something to wear. He'll surely have more experience. He'll never duck out of the clinches if he's a good guy. That is, without a doubt, the truth about a Hollywood husband. However, with all the wisdom they both had at their disposal to try and keep their marriage intact, the pair went their separate ways in 1943, a mere 5 years after their wedding. They had a daughter from their marriage, though, named Julia. Shirley went on to retire a year later after the divorce, and John moved on and went to marry Gloria DeHaven in 1944 as well. Now it's your turn. Tell us what you felt about John Payne and Anne's position on Hollywood husbands down there in the comment section. We'll be happy to read your comments. John Payne knew perfectly well what it was like to be married to a real Hollywood star. A relationship between two celebrities is never simple. Marilyn Monroe's marriage to Arthur Miller was the strongest in the history of Hollywood marriages. Watch this video and find out why it ended the way it did.